Hello and welcome to Best Practices for Mobile. My name and this voice belongs to Dave Story. I am currently the Vice President of Mobile Products and Strategic Growth at Tableau, where I'm responsible for our mobile product roadmap. Before being at Tableau, I was like you, I was a customer actually. I discovered Tableau about two jobs ago, and I had the good fortune at my last job to run all technology at Lucasfilm, and to be able to build an entire BI system starting from scratch around Tableau. That was super fast and super fun. In fact, I liked it so much, I joined the company. And I've been at Tableau for 5 months now, responsible for both scaling the development organization and developing our mobile roadmap. I also joined for our mission. Tableau's on a mission to help people see and understand their data. And it's very important that that include mobile, because our customers are increasingly mobile. They are the people who know the data, and that means that they are in demand. They have other jobs, they are teaching, they are researching, they are explaining, they are performing medicine, they're doing creative tasks. And as our founder says, we need to get to them because those people are often not tied to their desks. That's why one of our key themes is analytics everywhere. Analytics everywhere means that we need to bring our product wherever our customers need to have their data. And to that end, with Tableau 8.2, we are also adding another new platform for us, the Macintosh platform. And Tableau Desktop will be available for the Mac early this summer. But today I'm going to talk about mobile-specific portions of analytics everywhere. I want to talk a little bit about our timeline to date, an overview of what the mobile experience is with Tableau, whether on the web or in a browser, or whether in a web browser or on an app. And then design tips. And if you already know everything about Tableau's mobile product and you're an experienced user, you can jump to the slides where you start to see me talking about design tips. Because there's where we're going to talk about some of the layout and authoring questions that you may be facing as you think about a variety of screen sizes and interaction styles on mobile devices. Then we'll go over some differences, and I'll explain to you some of the gotchas and some of the security aspects of Tableau Mobile. And then we'll be done. We're not going to be doing a demo during this session, simply too complicated, but please come to TCC or look on tablausoftware.com for a whole long list of videos about all aspects of our product line. They're well organized and relatively easy to find, and I'm sure you'll learn something by doing it. Our timeline for analytics everywhere started actually with mobile applications on Tableau 8. We introduced an Android app in March of 2013 with Tableau 8, and also added web authoring to our Tableau server. That meant that not only could you view your business, but you can actually author and edit them. And I'll show you some screenshots of what that looks like towards the very end. We launched Tableau Online, our software as a service offering, in July of 2013. And this is an excellent solution if you're interested in mobile and web access, because this is Tableau server hosted by Tableau and with a private space just for you and your company. In November of 2013, we launched Tableau 8.1, and that included high DPI or high resolution rendering. We also added movable filter windows on the mobile, and we default to launching on your favorites, which is probably where you want to go. In Tableau 8.2, coming up early summer, as I mentioned, we're adding Tableau for the Mac. We're adding better maps, so we have an entirely new maps system. And we've made some speed ups in the Tableau server and mobile application for 8.2. So I'm really looking forward to getting 8.2 in your hands. That's coming, again, summer 2014, coming soon. And you can see we've been making really rapid progress. From March 2013, July 2013, November 2013, and now summer 2014 with an entirely new platform. We're really investing heavily to make sure you have the best possible experience. Now let's talk about Tableau's mobile capabilities, just a quick overview of the basics. And as I said before, if you're already a very experienced mobile user, go ahead and jump to the design section. But I think you'll appreciate a quick overview of the basics. First of all, Tableau Mobile means that you can access your business in either a browser or an app, your choice. On the top left here, you see a web browser being run on a tablet, and on the bottom right, you actually see the Tableau Mobile application. And in each case, the vises look great. You don't have to author separately, and really it is a matter of choice. If you want to talk to your server, in this case Tableau Online, and look at a particular view, you can simply bookmark it. Or you can launch the application and favorite it. Because we use a web browser in our current generations of Tableau Mobile, you can access the same viz in a web browser and get the same view. And this is a really powerful capability. You get to author your visualization once and view everywhere. You can view it on your desktop, in your web browser, on your mobile device. It really allows you to have a complete experience. And this is something we're going to continue in our mobile roadmap and in our Tableau roadmap in general, is to reduce the number of additional things you need to do to communicate your information. So really authoring once and viewing everywhere is very important. In the web browser, if you access your server, you can also navigate the server categories. Here you can see this entire side tab, and this is available only in the web browser view when you're talking to server or online. In this case, I'm looking at those things only published by Nick Ritzko, the program manager for mobile. Again, this is not available in the mobile application. Also, if you're in the web browser, you can administer the server, and that, again, is not available in the mobile application. So even if you're using the mobile app for the most part, you may want to still be bookmarking your server locations so that you can actually administer your server using your web browser. Now, what is in the app? Again, there is a consistent appearance. So this now is that same viz being shown in our iPad application. We release both Android and iPad versions now. But throughout this, I'm going to take screenshots off the iPad. So again, you get very consistent experience. It's the same appearance. You're not going to have something radically different. And that's because we actually use the same web rendering technology inside the application. What we do differently is that we provide larger and more legible targets. So you can see here on the bottom left, we have our favorites and our recents with large finger-friendly tap areas so that it's much easier to navigate using your finger. Whereas most of the web experience, when you're looking at it in a browser, is assuming that you have a fine pointing device, like a mouse. So again, larger or more legible tablets that are much more finger-friendly. We also add native controls for search. So these are not simply web controls. These actually appear and look like the native controls and allow you to use, again, finger-friendly controls familiar to your users and yourself that look like they are native to the mobile device platform. And when you want to go into web authoring, you can simply tap the edit button and go into a web authoring experience. And the web authoring experience is pretty impressive. It was one of my favorite things as a customer, was that if I tapped on the edit side of things on the left, I got actually my pills that I could drag and drop, and I could create new visualizations from an existing workbook. But when I tapped into the viz area, the edit controls slide out of the way, and I have a large surface area for my viz. But you can see that this gives you many of the capabilities of Tableau Desktop whenever you're actually connected to the network. And I think it's important to look at this slide because not everyone has seen the web version of authoring, and many people haven't tapped that edit button. When you are editing, of course, we have the ability to revert in case you were just experimenting, or you can save a new workbook. And finally, you can simply be done with your edit session. Now, in the Tableau mobile app, we also do a couple of other things. We, first of all, will have the option for it to remember your password so that when you go to your server, in this case, we were going to our QA server internally, we can actually remember our password to enable automatic logon. And that automatic logon is available in the settings panel here down at the bottom. If you simply choose always authenticate off, then it will remember your name and password. If you turn this on, then when you switch applications from one to another, let's say you go to, your Facebook feed or something, and then come back to Tableau 10 minutes later, setting this always authenticate to on means that your application will ask you to log in again. This is a security feature used by some financial institutions, and allows you to have that additional feeling of security, especially in case your tablet is ever shared. Now, should you use the browser and simply bookmark your server, or should you use the app? At this point in time, it really comes down to your personal preference, because you'll get the same look and feel for your viz because we use the same technology to present. So it's really your choice. One thing you should know about the app is that it runs on any iPad. So the iPad 1 came with iOS 5.1, and now we're up to the iPad Air running iOS 7, and it's supported on all those platforms. On Android, we require a 7-inch tablet, so sort of the iPad mini size, with version 4.x or higher. And that's Android with codenamed Ice Cream Sandwich. The latest major release of Android is 4.4, which is KitKat. And if you notice their codename theme, which is portable snacks, I always find that amusing because it's a really good codename theme for a mobile operating system. But let's talk about optimizing content for mobile. Best practices, talking about resolutions of your screen. So first, you may notice, and you may have experienced this, you're working away on your big desktop monitor, you've got the perfect layout, everything looks great. You publish it to the server, look at it on your tablet, and this is what you've got. Tech in the Great Recession of 2009, only you don't really get any of the other portions of the viz. You've cut off the right side, you've cut off the bottom. And that's simply due to the size of your screen. When I think about designing for a mobile device, I think about the resolution and the number of pixels on the screen. And I typically design for a single device orientation. One viz or another viz is set for a single device orientation. That means landscape, wide to the left and right, or portrait, which is a tall orientation. I also like to use a fixed width dashboard because side-to-side scrolling is kind of uncomfortable on these tablets. And our user experience is that people are much more comfortable scrolling up and down through content. In fact, after the mobile experience got more popular, you're starting to see many websites also have a fixed width and lots of up and down scrolling. And you'll notice that on tableausoftware.com as well. The other thing you can do is experiment with different sizes. So if you pick a single device orientation and experiment, automatic may just work, especially if you follow some of the best practices I'm going to talk about later. The iPad default is sort of a good resolution. But one thing that we've seen, and some of our users have given us feedback on, is that using the desktop option with a range of pixel size can actually give you a really good experience. And this one right here is actually something we got from our users, a minimum size of 795 by 440, and a maximum size of 1024 by 768. And that tends to work pretty darn well across a range of tablets, and allowing Tableau to simply resize your viz layout within this constrained range, about a 4:3 ratio, or 5:4 ratio, so up from 800 to 1,000 pixels approximately, often gives a really good experience. So try that one out next time you're looking at your dashboard resolutions and trying to decide which to use. The other thing that's new in Tableau 8.1 and 8.2 is that high resolution support is on by default. And if you can see that right here, in the past, you might have low resolution here. You can see the jaggies or the uneven edges. With high resolution, this is much attenuated, much better. And it's just gorgeous. And the beautiful part about this is you don't have to reauthor, it just happens. So as display technologies continue to get better, we're trying to make sure that you have the best possible result. It's visible not only in your viz, but also in the fonts. I mean, really try to read the fonts here, the names of the companies that were the fastest growth companies. And you'll see it's so much easier to use on the new devices. And we simply do that for you. Now let's talk about optimizing content for mobile. And I'm going to talk about two best practices that really have to do with your fingers and with the legibility on smaller devices. So first, your fingers. Let's talk about avoiding complex selections by looking at one of our favorite vizzes. This is a viz which is about real estate or housing prices on an island near Tableau headquarters. This is a very desirable island in the middle of the Seattle area. And as you can see, this is also a really gorgeous viz. And if you're on a desktop, it works great. You can sweep select here on living space. You can sweep select a region. You can select and shift click and select a whole bunch of these different dots and have the two actions, connect to each other. You know what? It doesn't work very well on tablet, unfortunately, because there is no ability to do a control click or a shift click that allows you to select multiple independent points. Say this blue point in the top left of the island and this blue point on the bottom right, and see where they are on the scatter plot. Now on a tablet, you can select adjacent marks. If you tap and hold down, you're able to sweep out a rectangle. And you can also select individual marks, of course, simply by tapping on one mark after another. And in Tableau 8.2, we're speeding that up. The server and the client work together, so you only have to tap once to move from mark to mark. Just tap on one, see the tooltip, tap on another. If you want a good mobile experience with this particular visualization, you may have to rethink it. So while we talk about being able to author once and view everywhere, Tableau simply can't overcome the limitations of not having control and shift as options to make multiple selections on a mobile device. So what do you do when you want to have a viz of this type? But you're going to have to live with the constraints of a mobile input. When you do that, think about concepts like this. So here's one concept. Take that scatter plot and change it into a bar chart. You really are, in this case, we're inspecting, something that is quantitative. And we can look at the different aspects of quantity in different columns. So we can get the two dimensions on a much more finger-friendly way. And replacing the details with a tooltip like this one allows us to see all the detail, but just one at a time. Finally, at the top, you can see we added a $1 per square foot filter, which was part of the main point of that previous scatter plot. By adding that filter, we get similar insight with much easier fingertip or touch targets. So because of the limitations of mobile devices, you may have to trade off the richness of your analysis that you're used to with your mouse and pointer against the usability with your fingertip. Okay, so that's one aspect, is really thinking about selection. And I hope this example gives you some ideas about how to rethink selection when you're using a big fat finger instead of a very sharp and pointy mouse. Now let's talk about maximizing, and so here they are side by side. You can see that scatter plot on the left when you're working on a large desktop with shift select and a mouse and a pointer. And the same viz on the right, we thought with the additional filter and with the bar chart, the small multiples of bar charts here, and the tooltip on the right. You can still get the key insights across, but you have to really think about the type of selection. And you may find that in the end, the one on mobile actually works really well on desktop. And then you've actually hit a sweet spot. Now you're authoring once for mobile and being able to reuse that on the desktop. Now let's talk about maximizing space, okay? The tablet is truly a different medium, and not just because of the input format of using a finger. The tablet has fewer views, and frankly, when people pick up a tablet, they expect an easier experience. It is much more of a consumption device than an authoring device. And so there's just a simple bias among your users or viewers that you're sharing your business with that it's going to be easier, going to be simpler. The point is going to be clearer. And this is a great way to think about your content. Think about simplifying it. You may want fewer views per dashboard, single purpose per dashboard. Maybe you use more dashboards than you would on a desktop where you can pack a lot of stuff in, but think about what is the question that each dashboard is answering. And can you tune your dashboards to really answer a single question or enable exploration around a single question? And remember that these people are expecting shorter sessions. They're really trying to stay on top of their information and get an answer now. And they're using our tablet because it's convenient and it's simple. And they expect you to simplify your content to match that. Other catches are that you may be using features that are only available if you have a mouse, like hover. You may be using really small marks, which are going to be very hard to select with a big fat fingertip. We do recommend that you use tooltips, and in 8.2 we've sped that up, as I mentioned, by allowing you to tap from one mark to another without having to untap to get rid of the tooltip. And finally, one thing that you may want to avoid is to avoid actions on selection. If you're using actions, those require a server round trip. And while the mobile app is talking to the server, it will have to gray out the screen and not allow any more input. So it just freezes your application for a while, and that can be frustrating for your users. So really think about separating the actions out from selection and having them be a concrete action that users take. It is different than simply tapping on something when they think they might be getting just a tooltip. If they're getting a full server round trip, they're getting more than they expected, and they may be frustrated at the delay. Now let's talk about a dashboard and think about another example of how to reformat it, taking into account maximizing space. Here's a dashboard from Kelly Martin at Viz Candy. She was generous enough to share this with us and to show us how she reformatted it for various aspects, both iPad and iPhone formats. Of course, these work just as well on Android. So you can actually find this in our Tableau public gallery. Here is a dashboard that she produced talking about monthly sales in her country of the United States. And so you can see a lot of small multiples, different views of things, and the ability to then have your filters on the right. Now, what does that look like when you put it on an iPad? Well, it looks something like this. The filters aren't obvious. The things are cropped. And in fact, in this case, in a portrait view, there's even white space at the bottom. So not a great experience, really not discoverable that I should have to scroll to the side to try to find more things. This is where it starts to make sense of what we're talking about, using more vertical scrolling than side to side, because your users just really don't expect it. Now what she did is actually add buttons to switch between a portrait version and a landscape version. And like I said, I really appreciate a landscape version when I'm using my tablet. I think about that as a really natural format for holding it and for using it. And so what she did is she made a tablet version. And you can see here there is a button to show it as portrait, and you could switch in this case to show it as landscape. And here she's got a large control visible right at the top. The most important question, what is a particular month doing? This sales forecast is really for the current month. So she added a button up here in the top right to take you between portrait and landscape. In this case, the portrait view was relayed out, and it was actually a portrait dashboard, in this case from iPad, and she had a separate iPad landscape dashboard, and then an iPhone dashboard that I'm going to show you in a second. And this button simply switched you between the different versions. So that's one way to really use it. Now I'm going to show you this next one also on an iPad, even though it's designed for an iPhone. Here's the landscape version of that as well. So now she has moved things over to the right and put in a button saying show as portrait. And in this view, she was able to also call out some notes. And these expand a little bit to give you more horizontal resolution, more space horizontal. And what does it look like on the iPhone? So in this case, we're still showing it on a tablet, so it looks a little awkward. But imagine that this was an iPhone and this was all one column. Again, she's got a drop down at the very top to choose your month. And then she's really embraced the vertical scroll. So you just grab your thumb, slide it up the phone, and you have a great experience here. And again, this is simply layout. You're not having to relay out your individual zones. You're just laying out the format of the entire dashboard. So the phone version can be really exceptionally great if you embrace the vertical scroll. Now let's talk about mobile security. Okay? One of the things that people always talk about is, hey, this is a mobile device, it's out and about, it's going to get lost. How do I actually take that into account? So first, we talk about authentication with your server. Okay, and Tableau server supports Active Directory, local authentication, and SAML, which is a federated way to actually share logins, and allows us to use your login authority to authenticate users in Tableau server. Tableau server also supports trusted tickets, but the mobile applications do not support trusted tickets. And in fact, we would prefer that you use SAML even if you had trusted tickets, as we believe that it's a better authentication. In the future, we'll also be adding Kerberos. That's still in investigation for our mobile applications and for our servers, but it's a high priority request for Tableau server. And so you can expect to see that sometime in late 2014 or early 2015. We're still not sure yet. We don't have a firm time, but Kerberos is coming. Now, when you have external access, when you're allowing your server to be viewed from outside of your corporate firewall, we strongly recommend that you allow only secure HTTP. That means that the data going between your client and the server is encrypted. It's not open to prying eyes, and it uses the latest secure sockets layer encryption in order to provide the best transit security between you and the server. Finally, you should really have a device password on your device. If your employees are bringing their own devices, BYOD is an acronym for Bring Your Own Device. If they're bringing their own devices, you really need to require them to have a device password, because what that does is it tells the operating system that it should encrypt everything that's stored on it. And Tableau Mobile uses the latest operating system capabilities to encrypt all its data at rest. But that is only enabled if your device has a password. Now, what does Tableau Mobile currently download and store on your device? It stores only workbook metadata. It does not actually store the viz. You need to be connected to a server to bring the viz down. It stores only metadata like the name of the publisher and the name of the workbook. Even that data is encrypted on your mobile device. So Tableau provides a very low amount of exposure for your data by caching only a tiny amount of workbook metadata, what we've listed here, and then encrypting that at rest. So it is never unencrypted unless the Tableau mobile app is using it to access information. Now let's talk about some of the gotchas and the differences. If you're used to authoring for people on desktops or laptops, what's different about hardware and operating systems on mobile devices? First, there's a lot of market fragmentation, especially on Android. There are so many different suppliers. The Android operating systems tend to get upgraded less frequently. So the latest version of Android may reach your users' devices much later. This is a far cry better than the old smartphones, but it still can have significant delays before the latest version of Android is available and is installed on your users' devices. Also, the hardware can have quite big differences. Even similar sized tablets may have quite different CPUs. They may have quite different resolutions, and they may have quite different simply catching up and enabling certain features of the operating system. This is most true on the Android platform. But even on the Apple platform, the hardware has advanced quite significantly. They've gone from fairly slow 32-bit processors to quite fast 64-bit processors with multiple cores. So the same exact viz may perform poorly on one iPad, say an iPad 2, and seem completely great to you on an iPad 4. Tableau mobile apps are also not Tableau Reader on an iPad or on an Android device. Tableau mobile apps do not have all the capabilities of Tableau Reader. Tableau Reader is essentially Tableau Desktop without the authoring features. Tableau Mobile requires a connection to a Tableau server, to Tableau Public, or to Tableau Online, and does not have an offline mode yet. Now, having Tableau Mobile allow you to stay on top of your data even when you're offline is our #1 feature request for Tableau Mobile, and we are working on it. Stay tuned for more news on that. The other thing is that the map pan and zoom may be less fluid than users expect. The reason for that is we are not using the built-in maps on the mobile device. We are fetching the tiles of the map through a web interface. And while on 8.2 we're launching our own maps, and those maps are much faster, we can't actually use the native maps on the device because they're simply not designed for visualization. They're designed for an intuitive view, typically for navigation by foot, by car, or by public transit. Our maps need to be much less garish. They need to be a lot more subtle to allow you and your data to be front and center. So we actually operate our own custom designed maps. And you're going to see them get even more beautiful and even more detailed for more and more areas of the world in 8.2. We also don't allow header selection. What is header selection? If you have a long list, you can often, on the desktop version, simply tap on the header of a column to sort by that or to reverse sort by that column. That's not enabled on Tableau mobile application. So if your visualization and usefulness depends on header selection, it's not there on those devices. There are some small differences about in-app browsers versus standalone browsers or desktop browsers. So the in-app browser that we embed in our applications is different than the browser that you launch from your tablet launch screen. This is really an oddity of the way that the tablet vendors and the operating systems deploy their software. I don't think it's a major intention of theirs, but typically the standalone browser is a little bit newer and has some of the later technology. And because browsers have been getting so much faster in their JavaScript, and they've been launching those latest JavaScript speed-ups in the standalone browsers like Safari and Chrome, and they've been bringing that into the teams that provide the core operating system libraries that we use, there's a delay there. And so sometimes the browser that we're using is it's the latest one provided by the operating system, but it is a little bit slower, it's a little bit older than the latest one that's supplied as Chrome or Safari standalone. So you may notice slight differences there. They tend to catch up fairly rapidly, but again, if the operating system hasn't been upgraded in a while, let's say you're still running Android 4.1, you may have a significantly newer Chrome running on your Android tablet and see that it's actually faster to look at your viz using the browser than using our app. And unfortunately, we can't control that, but you may notice slight differences there, especially if you're testing one in the browser and one in our app. It's simply a feature of the operating systems. Now, I occasionally get questions about Windows 8 applications. At this point, we have no plans for a Windows 8 application. If you'd like to actually have one, then you should go on forums, the Tableau Ideas forum, and at that point you can request that and vote up those requests. That's how I know that the offline mode is the #1 feature request, is because our users have gone to the Ideas forum on tablausoftware.com and voted up offline mode to be the most frequently voted for feature request for Tableau Mobile. So that's the end of the presentation. If you're coming to TCC, I would welcome you to join us and ask questions. But clearly, analytics everywhere is one of our top themes at the company. We are dramatically increasing investments in mobile, and I'm confident you're going to see even more innovations in both our web and in our native mobile applications in the days to come. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to meeting you at TCC in one of these next days. Thanks.